Is this working? Is this working? Well, there's a bit of delay, but I'm listening to it on my phone, making sure the audio is working. So anyway, in this live stream, I wrote this in the description as well, but my NAS up here, let me pan the camera, was supposed to get new CPUs, and I took the E5 2630L V2s, I think they were, and put them in this Supermicro GPU server, and I'm going to release a video on this soon. But the seller who sent the new CPUs, I ordered two of them. They are E5 2637 V2s, I think. They're 4-core, 3.5 gigahertz, I think. He sent one instead of two. I ordered two, and I sent a reply or a message to him on Thursday, and it's Sunday night now. So I'm still waiting on that, but in this video I want to do some testing, or in this live stream I want to do some testing on the NAS still. So I need to get the CPUs out of this system and put them back in there. And one thing I forgot is that this server doesn't have good rack rails. I'm going to have to pull this out and put it somewhere. Didn't really think that through before I started the stream, but we'll just have to figure that out. I did also unplug the KVM and network cables from the back of this. And for now, I'm just going to try and not break my arm again and get this out of here. And I've never done a live stream before, so I am going to try to... So the question now is if... Wait, what was I going to say? The question is, are you watching an Adam Messman video if it's not a video of someone swapping out their CPUs on carpet? So here is the inside of my new server, newest server. And I'm not going to get too into it in the video, but we have 4 bays for GPUs. Each of these is 2 each. And then our PCIe stuff over there. And then 2 processors, 2 power supplies. I forgot which model of server this is, but the CPU removal is kind of interesting because you have a bunch of these air baffles you have to take out to get access to the 2U heatsink and the 1U heatsink. And I'm actually going to move the camera a bit here because I need a better angle to get at those heat sinks. And yeah, I am streaming from the Touch Bar MacBook Pro. It is, even with TG Pro running, it's not overheating too much, or it's not screaming too bad. Fans are at like half, just over half speed, so that's pretty decent. And just undo these screws in kind of a cross pattern. Linus would be proud. And I think this one is loose. There we go. So I didn't put new thermal compound on these, I just took them out of the NAS, put them in here, and then put the heatsink on them. But I did find my tube of thermal compound. Oh, that's not in frame, is it? There we go. It's this HY710 that expired like 2 years ago at this point. My friend Jared dropped it, and it doesn't have a nozzle anymore, so it just kind of sprays out randomly. So Jared, if you ever see this, shout out to you. I used to go to school with him. So I'm going to take some paper towel and just kind of wipe off the extra here. And then I am going to clean these before. Actually, should I clean them? I don't know, because they are a temporary replacement. And I should get the new CPUs probably in a week or so. So I think I'm just going to leave them, I'm just going to wipe them off and put them in the server. The heat sinks, on the other hand, are not going to go on that bare socket with thermal compound all over them, because that's not really the best idea. I don't think I ever made a video on it. I might have, but my old Xserve, I messed up one of the sockets doing that with thermal compound got in the socket, and when I tried to clean it out, I bent some of the pins. I might have that video. I'll upload, when the VOD gets uploaded, I'll put that in the description if I can. But that is one clean heatsink, and I almost put it back on the socket with the heatsink installed. That wouldn't have been good, and that's under a lot of tension. But I'm just gonna pull that nice Gigantor Xeon out of there and set that aside. And it looks like we have 4 viewers. So hello everyone. I know James is watching, but I don't know who else is. So let's get some of that thermal compound out of the retention bracket thing, and just lower that back on. And I think this lever is first, and then this one. Intel with their zero insertion force slogan, but you have to push those levers. It's always kind of frightening because you think you're doing it wrong, but I think those are lined up. I think the heatsink screws are lined up with these socket holes, rather. So I'm just gonna once again screw down in a cross pattern, and not that it really matters, but it's just good practice, I guess. So one CPU is out. Are those tightened down fully? Where's my screwdriver stripping? I think those are fully tightened down. Alright. actually have a better screwdriver right here, but whatever. So I don't think I'm cutting across the shot too bad from this angle. Oh, the MacBook's really kicking its fans up now. So second heatsink is nice and free, and just gonna, well, you can see that pretty well actually. I like that, but second heatsink, just gonna wipe that off. That came off nicely, and put some rubbing alcohol on there. I'm almost out of rubbing alcohol. I have just a little bit left. I use this to clean my glasses too, so it goes pretty fast. But that is clean. So another interesting thing about this server, I mentioned this before, is it has a 1U heatsink and a 2U heatsink, and that's by design, I guess. Kind of an interesting way of doing things, but I mean, there's no reason they couldn't have done two 2U heatsinks, but once again, just kind of an interesting thing to think about. And the sockets are 180 degrees flipped from each other, so I should probably actually clean this one first and then take it out. So I'll cinch that down and clean this one off too. And sorry if I am not interacting with the chat. I am kind of far from the computer. Yeah, I was telling, James brought up using toothpaste as thermal compound. My buddy Tyler, I'll put a link to his YouTube if I can find it in the description as well for the VOD, but he used toothpaste on a Core 2 quad for a while. This was back, I think, when I was a freshman. That was getting on 5 years ago. 5 years since I started YouTube. So, but he went to a CPU parts store, or a computer parts store, and like the employees there were like not being too nice to him, and so he ended up using toothpaste. So, right, this one first, and then this one. That's why I was having some trouble there. So this has no CPUs. This also had a couple dead power supplies when I got it. That's all pretty much sorted out, but I haven't been having the best luck with sellers recently. But everything, well, and if the guy agrees to send a second CPU, then everything will be taken care of. But yeah, so no servers, or no CPUs in the server. Gonna have to remember that next time I go to turn it on. But I think that is good. And this air baffle goes on first. I need two monitors for this because I have to switch between OBS and the YouTube streaming page because I want to view the chat, and I also want to see what the camera sees, because there was a 30-second delay or so from me to you guys. So I think that's seated properly. And then this one goes like on top of it, like this. And yeah, it's just a weird design, cooling wise. Very interesting. But we are done with that server, so I'm gonna put the lid back on. It's kind of a weird fit. Alright, and I'm gonna cut to a black screen and set the camera back up. I just remembered that one of this rail in the rack is actually, they're both left side rails, but the seller I got these rails from was supposed to send me another right side rail, but hasn't done that yet, so that's a third thing on the list. I totally forgot that that was an issue. Let's load this server back up if I can do that without dropping it or breaking something. I think it's in the rails. Is it? Yep. We can just put that in there. I have to find a way to put screws in the holes there for mounting this properly and keeping it in the rack when I plug things in the back, because it'll like slide out. So, and get rid of this random cable that can go up there, and it's in the way of the camera again. Great. Anyway, I'm gonna lift up the camera, and there is the NAS, or soon to be. I'm still rocking the 2009 Mac Pro. And that's still plugged in too. When I first bought all of the cables for this server and the server rack, the rest of it, I wanted them to be long enough where I could pull these servers fully out of the rack like this and have them still plugged in, but it was a mess in the back because I don't have the like cable management arms that come with racks or rack rails and server kits and whatever, so I kind of gave up on that. But when I'm rich in the future, I am definitely gonna have a server rack with cable management arms. So a couple things in the chat. Yeah, my buddy, I think I said it was a Core 2 quad, right? But yeah, his whole room, his bedroom smelled like mint, he said. Using it on a Pentium 4, that must have been a complete oven of a computer. But can you guys see that okay? It looks like you have a nice view of that. And then the other tracking number we were talking about, James and I are in a Discord server together, but that was for the power supplies for the GPU server. They were sending 2 new power supplies because the 2 they sent had failing fans, and they sent me 2 tracking numbers, but only 1 tracking number worked, and both of the power supplies were in the same box for that, so that was kind of weird. And then how are the fans? Fans are back down to pretty much normal. It's about as loud as it is when it's plugged into my setup. So is that a bent pin? Uh-oh. I'm gonna have to look at that some more. But right there looks bent. Don't really know why it would be. Maybe it's just the way the light catches it. No, I think that's a bent pin in my best server. And there's a whole bunch of upgrades that I haven't released a video on. Either I'm super far behind video-wise, but you can see there's a couple SSDs here, an SSD and a RAID card. I think we talked about the RAID card actually. That was in the first video. And then the last thing I upgraded in that video was the processors, and we ran into this kind of issue. So that same pin on the other socket is shining bright like a bent pin does, so I'm just going to say that's not a bent pin. And let's open up this socket. And grab our first CPU. And where is the notch on this? So that's the correct way around. And drop that server, or drop that processor in there. And then this is the first lever, second lever, and get the HY710 thermal compound. I'm gonna get like Arctic Silver 5 for these kind of mission critical systems, but you can see that's just like a blob there. That's a nice Christmas tree going on. And I'm gonna wipe that nozzle down. So yeah, once again I have to alt tab back and forth between the stream and OBS, because like I said, the stream is like 30 seconds delayed, so it's kind of hard to see where the camera is going or what's on the screen without OBS open. So that is one CPU with thermal compound. I'm trying to get a good sized paper towel here to kind of get some of that off, because that is quite a lot for this. There we go, that's good enough, I guess. And put the heatsink on that one. So the CPUs I had in here in the video that I haven't released yet are E5 1620s, and they are quad-core 3.7 gigahertz. So the kind of issue, I think that this board doesn't support those, and I'm not sure if they support dual socket configs, because only one, the system would boot with only one installed, but it wouldn't detect both of them. So I think that that platform, or the 1600 series, must not support multi-chip configs. So there's our first CPU installed, and I'll get the second one. I'm going to move the camera as well so you can kind of see better what's going on. So I have a bunch of cables in the way of this one. There's the RAID card and SATA cables for the intent log SSDs. Once again, more on that later. So, or once again, I'll upload that video at some point. As soon as I get those, or the second processor, I'll upload that. And that's orientated correctly. Just got to drop it in, make sure it's seated, and push down one lever, push down the other, and put our thermal compound on there. There we go, that's fine. And Alright. Where's my other screwdriver? I think is the proper Phillips type or whatever, so that's another thing about this server that kind of bugs me. So the heat sinks are, I think this is narrow ILM versus like a normal ILM, and sometimes when I tighten down one side, the other side lifts up too much, and then I can't push the screw, or put the screw into the thread, and it ends up, you know, torquing one side of the CPU or whatever, and it's just not a good time. So, gotta be careful with these narrow ILM mounting things. But I think I'm in all the threads now, so alright, so that is all of the CPUs installed. I'm gonna hook these SSDs back up. There's also a second RAID battery in here again because I tried putting a RAID card in here. And a lot of stuff goes on off camera, and I kind of wish I had the energy to record everything and like the infrastructure to record everything, but I kind of don't right now. But we can pop this air baffle back in, and these cables are always kind of finicky. But our air baffle is back in, and I think that's all I took out of here. So let's put this cover back on. And move the camera over a bit. I'm actually going to face you guys towards the rack there. And I'm going to put the screws in the top. If this blows up on live stream, that's going to be sad. But we can push the server back in. And I always just kind of screw in these things here, the thumb screws. Not too tight, I still like to be able to remove them. And that is our server back in the rack. Shout out to my UPS with its faulty power LED, but I'm gonna go around and turn on the KVM and get everything plugged in. And plug in the server. Nothing's on fire yet. So let's move the camera and kind of point it at the KVM monitor. You can see the network switch I did an unboxing of in my latest video. And a whole bunch of stuff has changed in the rack, just because I've been tinkering stuff, and I might move the rack, or build a smaller rack and put it in my office. But that was loud, probably. But that's a nice view, I think. and I plugged in a keyboard to the KVM, and I think... Is that working? I plugged in a keyboard to the server, not the KVM. That was kind of stupid, but if we hit print screen, it takes us to our kind of thing here for the choosing which device. So I'm going to hit the power button. That's good. And press escape a bunch of times to view the post information. And I guess I'll read the chat now. Yeah, so the monitor or the screen here is a high-res anti-glare display from a 2011 MacBook Pro. And it has a weird driver board on the back of this wood panel here that allows me to plug in VGA, DVI, or HDMI and get audio out from it. So kind of fun project there. It was going to be, initially I bought those to have the monitors rotated 90 degrees, and they would be landscape monitors or portrait monitors next to each other. So that project never ended up working. So the viewing angles on these monitors, when they're rotated 90 degrees, the viewing angles are really bad. So I scrapped that project, and now one of them is the KVM monitor in my server rack. So, and you can see the Chinese text that I have no idea what that says. So one day I'll get around to learning Chinese so I can understand what my KVM is saying. But so it's gonna take us, it takes like 10 minutes to boot this thing up, but it takes us through the, I have what, like 3 RAID cards in this, I think, and we have to boot into all of those. So let's see, E5-2630LV2, number of processors 2, that's good. So now the question is, do I want to live stream myself getting into the FreeNAS UI? I don't really think it's an issue doing that. Anyway, I guess while it's booting up, I'll talk about moving all this stuff up to my office. So I'm also going to make a video about this where I talk about my network plans, but I was going to run a conduit from the basement to my office, which used to be my bedroom. It's the same room I film all my videos in, and that kind of isn't going like as fast as I would like it to. And so I'm going to build, I actually ordered the rack ears, whatever these kind of things that you can't see where my hand is, whatever. They the things that the rack rails, screw into, the rack ear kind of things. I ordered 16U, 4 16U ones, and I'm going to build a wooden rack and soundproof it and keep that either in my bedroom or office, somewhere closer where I can run cables to it. Because my parents don't want me running a bunch of fiber optic cables from my office to my basement. So and I would run them through the AC, which I guess you're not supposed to do because of when the cable heats up it gives off like gases or something, but I would run them through the AC ducts. But we have 2 separate systems for the lower 2 floors and the 3rd floor in the attic or whatever, so they are separate. So can't do that either. And like I said, this takes like 10 minutes to boot up fully into FreeNAS, so we're gonna be here for a little bit longer. That might be an issue. It said importing promise pool, and I have the master pool, which is the 12 drives in the server itself, and I have 16 drives in the promise RAID array thing, drive enclosure, drive shelf, whatever, JBOD, and that was promise pool, and that's not there because the RAID card I took out. So yeah, we are booted into FreeNAS now, so I'm gonna try and I'm gonna get into the UI off camera, and then switch to that, I guess. So if you can hear me, I wasn't able to share my screen to the OBS. It's not detecting the Safari window that I want to share with the FreeNAS UI, so I guess I'm just gonna do it the old-fashioned way and show you the screen through the camera. So if I move this, you can see my OBS window and 24 threads, and yeah, so both CPUs are recognized. Each is a 6-core with 12 threads times 2 CPUs is 24 threads. So the NAS is back online, so that's good. Why don't I also boot up the Fat Twins and we can make sure those connect to the NFS share I have set up. Actually, we only need to do one of those. So move the camera back and move it down to the Fat Twins, and boot one of those up. I've been streaming for 40 minutes, that's wild. It was almost midnight. But things are going really well, so got worried for a sec because on the switch up here, just uploaded that yesterday, I think. Nothing's plugged in right now, but all of the servers are hooked up through 10 gigs, so that is fine. So I think in every video I've made about my VM servers, where I talk about the VM hosting I'm going to do, I've talked about, or I've mentioned I'm switching to Proxmox, then switching to ESXi, then Proxmox, then ESXi, but I think I'm going to stick with ESXi or vSphere or whatever. I still have no idea how their system works, so I'm going to have to figure that out, but I think I'm going to stick with VMware stuff, so. Two E5-2630Ls. These servers each have two 2630L V2s, so, and 40 gigs of memory. I think, yeah, I released that video about these, if you want to check that out too, so. I'd love to see what my UDM Pro is saying about bandwidth here. It doesn't say on that switch, whatever. So our VM server is booted up, and I'm going to navigate to that. And I'm going to pull the camera back and show you the MacBook screen again. So if we go to up here, we have VM Data Store and Colossus Master Pool. Those are the two things, and Data Store Browser, and we have our folders. Actually, let me go to the other one here. So Colossus Master Pool is the entire shared array. The entire array on that server is shared, and then VM Data Store is a subfolder that's also shared over NFS, and that is strictly the like VM DKs or the VM disks and stuff. So if we go to a Colossus Master Pool, we can go to like OS ISOs, and we have our Windows ISO and stuff like that. So our NFS shares and our NAS is working the way it's supposed to be. So that is great news. Speaking of great news, that was kind of a bad segue, but whatever. So I think that's going to be it for this live stream. Everything is working great, and I'm going to turn off the servers now because I have no reason to have them on tonight. Anyway, I think that's going to be it for this live stream. I hope you guys enjoyed the first live stream on my channel. Did VMware release ESXi 7? Yeah, I think they did like a few weeks ago or like a month ago. All of my license keys are for 6.7, and I'm not sure how updating that works. So I'll figure that out, but yeah, they did release VMware 7 recently. So anyway, I think, like I said, that's going to be it for this live stream. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope to start doing this more often because I think it's pretty fun and I've always wanted to. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.